it's so much deeper, and there's levels to this because people will ditch the mainstream. They get into the alt news world and they end up like getting locked in with someone else that's lying to them. Okay. What's up, everybody? Let's lock in on this. I got some translating, deciphering to do for you guys. Yeah, let's talk about it. So this has to do with this attack on this Venezuelan drug boat, Tren de Agua drug boat, down off the coast of Venezuela in South America. We're going to talk about what this really has to do with. What are the functions of this attack, the way that it was reported in the media, the video we're shown, what can we tell off of that video that we're showing about it, and what can we tell by the whole thing, especially considering how it fits into the greater picture context-wise. There's a lot happening right now in the world, and for this to pop up and just be shown to us like this, all of a sudden fighting drug cartels are top priority to the point that we're assassinating and blowing up boats down in the Caribbean. So there's a lot to unpack there. I'm going to give you my thoughts on it. I think I'm on the pulse as usual. A lot of times, I don't know how my stuff is received, but typically ages pretty well. So come along here, let's flick to it. Before I get into this video, I have a video from the channel Dialogue Works. So before I give you some of my reactions to those guys' thoughts on this and show you what those guys think about this, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I'm seeing this situation. First off, because this comes on the heels of Trump dispatching the Navy down off the coast of Venezuela, 4,000 Marines, I guess, something like that, were cobbled together and sent down there. With all relevant ships and stuff. They sailed their way down there. So apparently there is a show of force, but really you can say that this show of force kind of came out of nowhere. But so boom, out of nowhere, we're down off the coast of Venezuela. And then within a week, we have this strike on this boat. They're saying this boat is filled with drug traffickers. They were a drug trafficking cartel. They even specified Tren de Agua. And shown to the world on Western media in very proud fashion. Was this strike on this quote unquote drug boat. So what's going on here? First off, had to put the dog down. First off, this is a violation of international law. This is not the way that an arrest of a drug cartel is supposed to be made, or interdicting, right? And in suspected drug trafficking is supposed to be made. By international law, people that are suspected guilty of a crime need to be arrested, brought in front of a court, and held trial, okay? Just like we have our rights here, everyone has their rights under international law, and even more so, because this happened in the water, this deals with maritime law, and maritime international law is a completely different thing, similar in a lot of ways, but different. But no doubt these individuals have their own rights, and those rights certainly don't involve falling victim to an assassination or a murder strike. That's what this was. This was murder, right? This act was a violation of everyone on board, of their human rights. And it was a violation of international law in the sense that Trump decided to just act as judge, jury, and executioner on this. What's really going on here? In my opinion, what we're seeing here, this is a desensitization, desensitize. This is a desensitizing. This is a desensitizing ritual, right? The point of this is to desensitize us to violence. The point of this is to get us used to this type of violence. You can say that, like, what's going on with ICE and the way that we're rounding up Americans into camps is the same thing. You know, under the guise of dealing with migration and illegal immigrants, they've now gotten like half of America to just be okay and cool with federal agents suiting up, not having any badge, any name on, and just running out, violating the states and the state citizens' rights by just running out and arresting people like that. Far and above what they're legally allowed to do. So they show Oh yeah, check out these raids against illegal immigrants, right? ICE guys going and making the city safe again, blah, 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 blah. It really doesn't matter what the outcomes are because you're using crime to do it. The government is criminally liable. Trump is criminally liable for violating the law intentionally. He knows he's doing it. This is an intentional trouncing of our rights and the law here in America. Now, with this boat, it's very much the same thing, right? Just like you have migrants, these are legal immigrants. We can suit up with masks on and go and run in any state we want and do this. Well, these are drug runners. Yeah, boat full of drug runners. Let's blow them up. We can do that. Now, one more thing, let me just say about this desensitizing is that one of the things I try to do is to translate and decipher mainstream news here and the stories where they matter. There's so much coming at us that, I pick my things that I focus on because the good stuff is mixed in there in amongst the weeds. Okay, so I do my best at picking out the good stuff to spend my time on. Well, this is certainly one of them. One of the ways that I can tell here with the way that news and information flows for me personally is watching my YouTube feed and, mainstream as well. You have the mainstream news and they put these stories out, but then the story will, work its way and it comes out in the alt news sources and the independent news sources as well. Now, personally, I have vetted my sources of information, and I believe I have a pretty good take on what information comes from where, what information comes to me from a compromised source, what information comes to me from a legit source, right? So one of the things I want to help to do with people is to get people to stop being fooled. Like the mainstream media has everybody under a spell, yes, right? But it's so much deeper and there's levels to this because people will ditch the mainstream, they get into the alt news world, and they end up getting locked in with someone else that's lying to them, right? Now, this Venezuelan drug boat is a perfect example. And there's these different stories that happen. So maybe some of you guys can see it too. Put it in the comments if you would. But there's these different stories that come out as time goes on. And you can see the way that it's talked about amongst the different channels. That can tell you really what's up with that channel, if it's compromised or if it's legit. Because you can see all of them propagandizing and pushing things, okay? Example, with this Venezuelan drug boat, if there's any one of you that are watching a channel that tried to dramatize this, that tried to glorify this, that talked about this in this G.I. Joe, cool sort of way. Yeah, we just, America, go down there and blow up a drug boat. Yeah, screw those drug dealers. You know what I'm saying? Go Trump, MAGA, blah, blah. All of these channels are compromised. All of these channels are spreading you propaganda to get you to continue to sit there and be complicit as more of our rights get eroded on the daily. They're trying to do the same thing that Netanyahu and they're doing in Gaza right in front of our eyes, which is a big old ceremony. And it has sure worked to demoralize most people or just desensitize people to the point that they're that cold that you guys can go out and enjoy holidays and do all these things, watch the game while there's just a genocide going on and we're supporting it. Oops. The people that are trying to come on videos now, right around now in the last few weeks, and still justify Israel is beyond sickening, man. It's so beyond sickening. And they want to get you to the point where you just see this stuff and it doesn't even make you flinch. Everything about our news cycle is outrage and fast paced. This is all to get you to just not think about it. And they show you this violence and they mask it and dress it up in a way that gets you to accept it. That's murder. What we did is murder. If you watch any of these channels that's telling you this stuff, go look at their other content. They're probably more than likely pro-Ukraine, and they're more than likely pro-Israel, right? If they were reporting it like that. More than likely. Bam. Take them out. Da, 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 da. If the people, like, this is a gross violation of human rights and international law. And it's a very, very, very scary precedent. And the whole point of this was to get us to watch it and be okay with it. So that's why I'm trying to warn you about these channels out here that are portraying it like this. So consider that your warning. Now let's talk about this boat. Okay. First off, it had 3 onboard motors if you look at the video. Now, I'm not a fishing or a boat guy, but I can tell you from talking or from listening to people talk about this, they hold their own little bit of gas. So that boat ain't getting too far. Really looks like it could have been maybe a fishing boat or a boat that goes along short distances on the coast. Okay, boom. Second, this boat, and just, how about second, we just say right off the rip, it kind of just looked like a fishing boat or some, like a bunch of people on a boat. It just looked like a normal boat. I don't know. So like the narco boats are not that. That was like a fishing type boat that you might see docked, you know, down here on the East Coast and like the Jersey Shore or something, you know, down in Delaware and the Chesapeake, like does coastal waters. This wasn't any type of boat they typically run drugs in. Those are like the big long speed boats. You know, a lot of room and a lot of speed that they pack with a lot of fuel and a lot of coke. Or they do the submarine thing, right? Now that gets me to the second point. If this is a drug boat, why are there 13 people on board? Nobody's really talk about this. I think it's a really, really, really big point. It to me, it almost makes it completely invalid that it makes the accusation of a drug smuggling boat completely invalid. There's no way that that boat was smuggling drugs and it had 13, 14, whatever people on it. I can tell you that 100%, cross my heart, hope to die. As somebody that's been involved in a certain, you know, I didn't ever do violent crimes or nothing like that, but I've been involved in moving stuff around and this and that. And let me tell you, when you go to move a bunch of weight around, you sure as hell don't bring the whole gang along, right? You don't just bring everybody along for that. That's not something, these are like solo missions, or, you know, 1 or 2 people. Maybe on a boat you have 2 people because you have to, or if you're doing something in a caravan, you have multiple drivers or 2 drivers to switch out, but you're not bringing 13 or 14 people to smuggle a ship full of coke. Like every one of those people was more weight or space that a few keys of coke could have fit in. Come on, dude. So by all looks of it, it sure seems like we just struck like a fishing boat or a civilian boat. None of the indicators say that was a drug boat. Again, this is like another nod to the ritual aspect of this. Just believe us. Look at how we use violence. Look at how we violate law willy-nilly as we want to. And we'll show this to you, and you're going to accept it. Don't question this. This isn't wrong. A genocide isn't wrong. It's not wrong to kill these people. They're drug smugglers. It's not wrong to kill these people. They're Palestinians. It's not wrong to kill these people. They're terrorists. It's not wrong to kill these people. They speak out in favor of terrorists. It's not wrong to kill these people. They report on the truth, which happens to look good for the terrorists. I mean, it's not even hard to like see. It's not even like hard to see where it's going. It's already gotten there. That's where it's at. And it's not hard to see it. It's only going to continue down that path. This path is going to be worn into the ground like a rut, and we're all going to have all of our rights just stripped away. And it's going to happen like really, 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 really quick. You know, here in America, we have a certain amount of stuff that's coming down the pipe for us. And I don't believe there's nothing we can do to get out of it. But that doesn't mean that we can't change things for ourselves in this country. And it doesn't mean that we can't henceforth change things for the rest of the world and how we interact with the rest of the world. We have to pay our penance, and we have to sleep in the bed that has been made by our predecessors. Bottom line. And it's time to stop digging that hole deeper. When we see something wrong, we have to call it, you know, and we have to have, I don't want to get into even the moral argument of this, because yes, it's morally incorrect. It's morally wrong to strike that boat, but we have law in place, and it's as easy as a law like that. This is just wrong and illegal. And, you know, frankly, one of the things that we need to do is to start standing up and holding our leaders and holding our reality accountable to the law that's on the books. You know, this is a great example of how they've just trained us to just be like, they're doing it right now. That's how they've pulled this genocide off. This is more of that. And this is more of that. And this is so they can continue to have this sort of behavior happening within our hemisphere, because we're losing our influence on the world. And, you know, no doubt the neocons in Washington are like, boy, we're getting boxed out of this entire situation internationally. We better go ahead and claim this huge amount of oil down in South America, because if that falls to the BRICS nations on top of everything else, which is basically the rest of the world at this point. So in a lot of ways, I mean, I guess you could look at this Venezuela thing. We might really go to war for this, because this might be something that you could really argue. They might be looking at this reserve of oil in Venezuela and whatever other resources, as like, you know, it could be a linchpin for the best potential future that they're seeing, right? Say if the neocons are understanding the reality of the BRICS situation, which I think by now they are. They've lied to all of us up to now. They've kept it out of the news, but it's happening right in front of our faces, whether you want to believe it or not. And they're behaving in ways that show that. Look at what happened with India recently. The Peter Navarro interview where he just completely lost it in front of the press corps. That was embarrassing, and it was very truth-telling. And just the way that we pushed everyone together. We pushed, and the latest one was India, you know, and I mean, boy, it's so obvious to see. I don't know. People would just really, really must only look at the headlines they're fed, and that's all there is to it. And then I think people are very trained to question anything other than that harshly, right? But the facts is like these things are happening, and no doubt that the Western leaders and the neocons and, you know, America with its 7 little doors in Europe, I've heard that recently, and it's very true. They could be looking at this Venezuelan oil reserve as a major, major, major resource, and something, I mean, it would keep us here in America from going directly into our oil reserves to keep this whole show on the road at all. And I'm talking about our little confined show of a road ball that we have left on the road. You know, so if we lose Venezuela to the BRICS and lose their oil to the BRICS, it's going to be a nail in the coffin, no doubt about it, for the West and for us. So I think that's major motive right there. I think there's another motivating factor for this that I haven't heard anyone talk about, and I lean towards it a little bit in what I was just talking about, with like discussing the way Venezuela relates to this international situation with BRICS and with the West. But this is kind of like a little deeper than that in its own way. You know, Venezuela fell victim to harsh U.S. sanctions, to the point where we've had many economic refugees showing up as immigrants to America, legal or illegal, from Venezuela because their economy was just destroyed. It was the most recent example of hyperinflation. After Chavez took control of all the corporate oil investment, and yeah, that was in '98, and then we tried to kill him a few times, right? Before he actually died. So before Chavez came to power, Venezuela was like it was like Israel. It was a colony of the West's corporate oligarchical, military industrial complex empire. Chavez took power of corporate interests, the international corporate interests in the country. Mostly we're talking energy, oil companies, and kicked out the West and kicked out Western influence. So this attack on the Venezuelan economy came really at the end of his, it really happened throughout his presidency and throughout his rule until he died, but it stepped up when Maduro took power. There's no doubt that when Chavez died and Maduro took over, the CIA saw that as a chance. They thought they would be weak, and they really tried to get control of Venezuela back. And there's been just a relentless attack on Venezuela's sovereignty since then. So Maduro has been fighting for his life and for the life of the Venezuelan state and the rights of the Venezuelan people. There's no doubt that the people are on his side. Tons of information out there about this. They've made it quite public about how they feel. You know, I saw a poll where it was like some overwhelming majority, 80, 90% of the people would stand up and fight against Western imperialism, should they have a coup d'etat in the country, type stuff like that. So in this process, Venezuela's economy suffered and fell victim to hyperinflation. Like I said, a lot of these people were coming here as refugees, economic refugees. So it was, I remember seeing a video, I think it was a few years ago, where, you couldn't get tampons. Women couldn't buy tampons. I'm talking like you couldn't get nothing inside of Venezuela. A little bit like Gaza, right? Right? Same type of thing. This is what they want to do. They want to make people suffer, okay? You see the playbook. So out of all this, stop this rant. Let me circle this back. Out of all this, Venezuela has managed to stabilize their economy, okay? I believe, I think a lot of it came through finding new markets for their oil. I'm not going to get into the details of that because I'm not totally sure, but they've managed to stabilize their economy to some degree. And, that could be a reason why we've stepped up our interest in this attack and 4,000 Marines, right? The more stable and peaceful these countries become, the more aggressive we become, because the whole point is to keep people, insecure and on their heel and not able to relax, because you can't prosper, right? If you don't relax.
Estamos en un momento de transición del viejo mundo imperial al nuevo mundo de los pueblos del sur, al nuevo mundo multipolar. Estos son dolores de parto del nacimiento de un nuevo mundo. Y Venezuela va en la vanguardia otra vez, igual que hace 200 años. El imperio estadounidense quiere, sabiendo su decadencia histórica ya, como imperio dominante, hegemónico, sobre todo en América Latina, que es su espacio vital, el imperio estadounidense quiere forzar una nueva hegemonía, un nuevo dominio. Y por eso arrancó la guerra comercial económica. Por eso amenaza con guerra a todos los países del mundo. Por eso es la política tan agresiva, brutal, que tienen de amenaza contra gobiernos de potencias. Se meten con las potencias del mundo, con los países pequeños, a todos los chantajean.
So, somewhere, I don't know how widespread this is, right? I don't know how widespread this is. I don't know if this is a completely local thing or if it's all across the country or in just some parts of the country. But I saw a video online where it was a store, like a Walmart, And let me tell you, it was a Walmart and then some, because they had everything. They had washing machines, you know, everything. Liquor, everything. It was everything. A store where you could buy anything. And everything was priced in gold, in weights of gold. I'm talking 1/100th, 1/10 of a gram. So we're, you know, right? Everything was priced in gold. When you went to pay, there's a lady with a scale and a ledger. People are paying in little chunks of gold. It wasn't standardized to the point where they had gold currency. This was raw gold. I'm sure they probably take payment in carats, and they probably have some type of, you know, math equations to regulate that out. But everything was settled in gold. Now, that alone is a major, major threat. They killed Gaddafi by, you know, him putting into play the gold-backed dinar in Libya. He was trying to do this as a continental currency for Africa. And this was a move that he wanted to back with gold being purchased by Libyan oil. And his hope, and this was done all separate from the IMF, all separate from the World Bank, all separate from the Jewish banking systems, which BRICS is going to be all separate from the Jewish banking systems, corporate banks. So this is exactly what they don't want happening. This is, if you look at the details, this is what BRICS is doing. They're backing their currency with gold. You know, this is another thing. If you see any videos out there saying how, oh, that's, you know, these countries are deciding to back their currency with gold and good luck with that. And like, bro, get away from those people. These are people that are lying to you and want to keep you asleep, because they are doing this. And they're already doing business in large part outside of the US dollar. The BRICS conglomerate consists of the majority of population, GDP in the world. This is something that is happening. And these little videos on YouTube are meant to keep you asleep so you can be used, they're meant to keep you asleep so you can be used up and ignorant, comfortably numb, until it all falls down right in front of you. They want to use your silent complicity to continue the genocide in Israel, and they want you to keep going to work and paying taxes so they can keep giving money to Israel and to Ukraine and to the military-industrial complex. And other than that, they don't really care. As long as you're fighting with your neighbor because they have a different color skin than you or have different interests than you, right? Okay. Drop some gems on you guys. I hope you liked it.
Almost impossible to exchange $100 in Venezuela, and here's why. The country is in a massive economic crisis that is twice as severe as the Great Depression. Hyperinflation has caused prices to be out of control. The US dollar is the unofficial currency, but it's not an option for bank accounts or ATM withdrawals. My friends and I headed to a market in Caracas to see if we could exchange $100. Because a dollar is worth over 1,000,000 bolívares, it's unlikely that a vendor would have that much change. Eventually, we were able to get part of our money back in bolívares from a vendor selling cheese. Next, we headed to a local bakery. One of the employees took out all the cash they had in the back. This big stack of money is $2. By the end of the day, we only managed to exchange $62 for bolívares. With $38 left, we headed to a local supermarket. The shopkeeper took us in the back and showed me his insane collection. He ended up just giving it to me as a gift, and I was unable to exchange the rest of my $100.